All right, we locked in right now. It's the Wheel1 podcast. It's Boy Master Twice. We got a special guest in the cut right here. Now, my friend Natasha right here. Introduce yourself to the people. Let them know. Let them know about you.
Anen, emske misko kwe nishnekaz, beezing don jaba, wawash keshen do dem. My name is Strong Earth Woman, also known as Natasha Larvier. I'm from Nipissing First Nation, and I'm Deer Clan.
All right. And we here, you know how we do this, so we just go get right into it, like we usually do. So, you got to tell me about the early life, you know what I'm saying, where you grew up. You know what I'm saying? Friends, family, siblings, all that. We got to get into it. I'm going to know the story.
So I grew up 3 hours north of Toronto in North Bay. I lived in town and on reserve. I have 3 siblings. They're all sisters. I had an older brother, but he passed away before I was born.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
I have lots of nieces and nephews. And my parents, they split when I was younger, but I just have more step parents and more love in my life.
You can never go wrong with more love. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. You can never go wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with a big family.
Exactly. Now, with that, growing up in North Bay, and the city life and Rez Life, tell me about that. How was that in general?
So, growing up in town, I didn't really know what it meant to be Native, and I realized that at a young age when I was in elementary school. There was one chapter in our social studies books or history book where it was talking about Indigenous people, and everybody looked at me in the class because everyone knew I was Native, and they were looking at me expecting me to give them a little history lesson, and I'm in grade 4, and I'm I don't really know. I don't really know who I am, and later on, I realized that the tribe was Iroquois, which is not who I am at all.
Oh, okay. So they were they're looking at you for a history lesson. You're that's not even my people.
Yeah, and I grew up not really knowing who I was as an Indigenous person till high school. So growing up, I just knew Natives just had big families. We ate a lot of food when we got together, and my parents and aunts, uncles like to go to bingo. But yeah, I grew up in town. A lot of my friends that I grew up with, they're also Native. They came from the James Bay coast, so a lot of my friends are Cree. Yeah, I grew up on the res when I got to grade 5, grade 6, when my parents split up. Then I moved back to town, and then back on the res throughout high school, and then now I live back on the res.
Now, for people who are just stuck in city life and city ways, can you please explain to them the strong difference between the res and in town?
Is that bush life? No. So where I live, it's kind of Nipissing's just outside of North Bay, so it's not other reserves that are way far remote in the bush. Mm-hmm. But we have beautiful lakes, beautiful land around us, a lot of nature, and we're a close community. So, your cousins, their parents are your aunties and uncles, even though they're not they're just your cousins. But yeah.
I mean, that's always a nice thing to have, because it's like you said, it's one of those things I think I've had this conversation with other people where it's when you're kind of split apart from more a city life, it's more of a connection of community, family bonding, because it's all that other stuff don't really matter at the moment in time.
Yeah, my parent, when I hang out, grew up on the res, my parents really didn't have to worry about where I was going and whatnot.
Which is always a good thing.
They knew everyone, and it was just down the road. In town, you can go further, and there's more things to get in trouble with.
You know what I'm saying? The further you go, you never know,
Yeah, exactly.
So now I want to talk about like some of the hobbies that you had growing up with, the experience of both, the town and Rez. What are some hobbies that you would have?
Well, when I was younger, I used to play hockey in town.
Okay. What was your position?
I was like forward, and I played goalie.
Okay. Look, offense, defense. Okay.
Yeah. I don't really have much hobbies. I play outside.
I mean, that's something that you had to do for fun. Like, that's what I'm saying. You got to, like, what are some things that, like, when you really needed to, like, as a kid, you think about nostalgic, going out, doing some fun things? What were some of them?
Playing outside with my cousins, going by the lake, going swimming in the summer. Me and my sisters, like my older sister, used to babysit us. And you ever watch that show, Uh-Oh?
Yeah, yes. I used to love Uh-Oh back in the day.
Set, like an Uh-Oh, like obstacle course in the backyard, and that's what we would do in the summer.
That's lit. Did you have the green slime though?
No, we used water. We had a back deck, and like she'd ask us the questions, and we'd get water poured on us. But that's
close enough. It works out the same way. That's amazing to hear. Now I want to hear about like some passions that you had while you were young, and like
how young?
Like from as long as you can go back. Like let me hear some of your passions.
I like creating. Like I just like playing house. Like what do you mean? Like you're talking about like elementary or like
in general,
high
like
school.
we're gonna lead up into like
okay. My passions. Yeah, me and my cousins, we used to put on little talent shows in our basement.
Okay.
That's how we passed time when our parents were hanging out and doing their own thing. Yeah, I really like enjoy creating those little skits and stuff like that.
All right. So now as you gotten older, like what are their passions now, and like do they have any little thing that relates back to the childhood, and if not, like what is it now, like that just drives you then, like this is what you want to do now, this is your passion?
So like if I look back, like we used to create dances and skits and stuff like that, and now for my hobby is like I like to share my story online, like on my Instagram page, and I have a Facebook page that I make videos and
platforms like this.
Yes, it is. And I share like what I'm going through, so people don't know that like they're not alone. And I guess that's kind of relates back, like I don't know, being creative.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. Like you gotta like for me, what I like to think is like we all kind of have this like inner feeling of what we're supposed to do in life, and I feel like even as a young age we kind of like dibble and dabble in it, and it's like does it always come back full circle? And I feel like for the most part it usually does. Like if that's like something that you're really truly passionate about and want to chase.
Yeah, like when I was younger, like I guess growing up and getting into like grade 7, grade 8, I used to hang out at the Friendship Center, and that's when I really started like planning things and events. Like I used to sit on their youth council, and so now looking back on that and to where I am now, like that's full circle.
Yeah, exactly. So look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Like it just kind of just works its way right back to you, because it's something that you've always kind of known that is you. Like and that's a big thing. Now I want to know something that like with how your views are on society now. It's like as you said, Native woman especially. Like how do you think the things are out here? And like let me know what's your view on it, and like how it has affected you navigating through the world.
Damn. How long do we have?
We got a lot of time. We got a lot of tape,
Like I didn't realize when I was younger how like colonization really affected like not just indigenous people, but like everybody in society, and like the patriarch and all that. Like I didn't realize that when I was younger.
Even the people that benefited from it.
Yeah, I didn't realize till like high school, like the stuff that has happened to my people, and like the government and everything that's going on, and giving us, the Indian Act, and residential schools, and the 60 scoops, and child welfare. Like, CAS is just another form of the residential school. And so I didn't really know till high school about society, I guess. So it's like, when you're younger, you don't really think about it.
Yeah, you're just kind of living life, right? Yeah.
Yeah, until high school, when I actually started going through shit. Sorry.
Nah, we can talk about that. It's the Wheel1 podcast. We keep it real out here.
Like, in high school, that's I went through a lot of stuff in high school, like a lot of loss, and I dealt with it with drinking, and I didn't realize, like, I didn't at the time understand why my friends, would take their own lives, or why they use. But now that I see, like, how society is, and, years of intergenerational trauma have happened, like, I understand now. I feel that, like, society is really capitalistic, and everyone just thinks about themselves, and they don't think about people as a whole. Especially the government.
Well, how it is. Like, that's a big thing, because, like, I'm a person that's, like, huge on, like, history in general. So, like, I love looking back into it. And when you look back in, like, colonialism, it was really just the benefits of the people who benefited, but they didn't realize the damages that it would do for centuries later on. Like, if you, like, literally take people and you give them disease, number one, and then take their land, and then, like, try to just forcefully almost like enslave them, pretty much, if you're taking people from their homes, and, like,
that's exactly what they're trying to do.
And so it's just a crazy thing. And then to look back on it, and it's like, several years later, not much has changed if you really think about it.
Yeah, not a lot has changed. Like, I can see from high school to where I am now, like, especially within the last year or so, I'm kind of going through a lot of loss again, which is what, like, reminds me back in 2009, 2010. And it's just like, wow, like, things haven't really changed. It's just like they're getting worse. And, like, a lot of youth that I know, they're still experiencing the same things that I experienced when I was younger. The youth that I work with too, they're going through a lot.
Yeah, like, I couldn't even imagine that, because it's like, like you said, where it's like almost a serious generational trauma, because like, it's the same things constantly happening to different groups of people, like,
Yeah, and, like, as much as it's bad, I do see the positive side too now. Like, there's people in my generation that are like, okay, our parents may have been quiet, but we're here now, and we're speaking up, and this is not right. And I see a lot of youth within my community and the youth that I work with, like, they're trying to create change and say, like, we're not just a stereotype or your statistics that are out there, and they're trying to make change.
I mean, that's the big thing now. Like, you're able to be noticed and be heard, because, like you said, you guys can tell your story and, like, show the visuals of what's going on out there. And that's, like, one thing that, like, it's one thing for people to hear about something, but when they see how it's actually affecting people, it hits you a little bit differently.
Yeah, and especially with all, like, these platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, like,
yeah, that's a big one.
TikTok, everyone's doing TikTok. Like, I have a friend that I went to high school with, and he's, like, blowing up on TikTok. I'm very proud of him. Like, and he shares his message.
Give him a little shout out right now.
Scott Wabano.
That's it.
Yeah, like, a lot of our generation is using online to get the message across that, society, what's happening in society is not right, and things need to change.
I mean, that's amazing. Now I want to ask you something. This is something that we always do on the Wheel1 podcast, because mental health is a big thing out here. Like, that's what we do this for. Now I want to ask you a situation where you were first, like, introduced to mental health, and like your own mental health, like a situation where something happened where you had to, like, check your own mental health, and tell me, like, how did you cope through that situation?
Damn.
I know I'm not asking you big questions, but this is a thing we do out here.
I guess, like, in grade 6, like, I mean, this might sound like, I don't know, I've been through a lot of loss. Like, I've faced a lot of loss in my life. of people that I loved, and at a young age. My best friend in grade 6 passed away in a car accident with his grandma, and then that's around the time like my parents split up, and like my grandpa passed away, and like so like these were things like that's when like stuff started really affecting me, and I knew I was sad, and like then I was like looking at like the role models in my life and how, you know, they dealt with things, the people around me, like my family, like, you know, they drink like when someone passes away, like after the funeral and stuff.
Yeah, that's like I think the typical thing for most people. Like, I wouldn't say most people, but like I think a lot of people know that. Like, someone passes away, you're pouring out, and we're drowning the pain in the bottle. Like,
Yeah, and that's where I think one of my bad habits started. Like that's where I started drinking at a young age to deal with my like depression, like my grief.
Mm-hmm.
And not actually deal with it, just like
numb it
like that was like I think is when I knew about mental health. Like that was my first like introduction, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, that's a good way to put it. So like now, like what are things like that you did to cope through that? And like, because obviously it's a deep struggle, like, to deal with certain mental health issues.
Like I don't think like growing up, I didn't really talk a lot about, things that I went through. I would just like numb it. And it wasn't until, again, like in high school, that's when I really got reconnected to the culture. From the high school I went to on reserve, Nipissing. They like saved my life. The teachers there, they like gave me that opportunity to know who I am and to learn about who my people were. Okay, and that's when amazing. I started really, I was still drinking, but like being introduced back to the culture, that's how I started coping in like a healthier way, like going to sweat lodge, doing ceremony, praying. But until then, like up to then, like I wasn't really talking to anyone.
So it's like
keep it in.
Yeah, like that's one thing I noticed is like a lot of us do that. Like even myself, like, because like with me, like obviously different experiences, but like, for me, like with getting shot and then being paralyzed, it was a lot of that I kept inside, and it was really hard for me until like I found somebody, my therapist, shout out Martha, and she really helped me just be able to like open up more and just talk about the situation. And then I realized like once you kind of talk about it and like you learn how to cope in that type of way, it kind of helps ease the pain of whatever you're going through a little bit, because like you feel like you're not the only one. I feel like that's a big thing that we a lot of times when we're going through things, we just feel like it's just us going through it.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I look back on it, there is a lot of times where I felt like I was alone, and I didn't want to share with anyone, like because I feel like they wouldn't understand, or
sometimes we just don't want to be vulnerable in front of people. It's that too,
and like my parents and growing up, like it's not really how I was taught. Like we didn't talk about things. We didn't talk about things like when we were going through stuff. Like it wasn't okay. Like if we expressed ourselves, like if we were crying, I don't know. We didn't talk about it. Yeah. We just be like, stop crying.
it's instead of like,
like, and that's from like when I was younger, and then that's probably why I didn't want to open up when I got older.
Because it says you've always been told, just
stop
suck it up.
Crying. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that I feel a lot of us have been taught, like through like as like when we're kids and don't even realize it. Yeah. It's like especially like for like me in my situation, like I'm a man. Usually it's always like, oh, don't cry, like suck it up, be a man. And then it's just like, like but we're all human at the same time too. Like I hurt just like other people. Like what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's that opening up now that we're all kind of realizing that we're all we all got emotions and we need to talk about them sometimes.
Yeah, and that's like from how I was brought up. Now that I have children of my own, my 3 beautiful children.
Shout out.
I'm trying to break that cycle, so that they can pass that on down the family line, and that it's okay to open up, and then maybe that'll help
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it will, because you know the open dialect, you know, open conversation is always, there's nothing could go wrong there. You know what I'm saying? Especially like to express how someone's feeling. So I feel like that's a big thing, because a lot of people, they don't express how they're feeling, so then they get angry about the world because you know you don't express to everyone else how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, I've been there.
I think we all been there. This is one of those ones, you know.
And then you bottle things up, and then someone can just like tick you off, and then you go off on them for not even the thing that made you explode.
That's just how it goes sometimes, you know. It could be the slightest thing, but like that's why, you know, communication and talking to people is always great, you know.
Yeah.
So now
it's good to open up.
Now, like we've already kind of touched into it, but I want to kind of double back now. Like, how is this pain that you've gone through with all this loss and like, you know, dealing with your own mental health? How has that helped benefit you now?
So like when I look back now, like 10 years ago, you know, when I was in high school, I lost about 4 or 5 people within the span of 1 to 2 years. And it was like back to back. I was drinking a lot. I missed a lot of school, but my one teacher, you know, was there for me. And because we kind of bonded because his son passed away to suicide. And one of my first boyfriend, like one of my loves, passed away to suicide. And that's,
sorry to hear that.
That's how we bonded, and he kind of helped me with my healing and gave me strength to heal myself. So I use ceremony to when I'm feeling down, and I didn't know that. Like, I didn't start doing that until recently too, when I stopped quitting drinking. You know, I started using the medicines that my people, like my ancestors, used.
I mean, see, like that's the thing. I feel like sometimes we can get the best connections through the pain, because like you said, you found a connection with someone who helped you in turn heal in so many ways because you guys connected through the pain. I feel like that's why sometimes it's like interesting how much the pain could be a beneficiary and like a motivator. Like obviously it fucking sucks when it happens. Like, you know, don't get me wrong. It does. You know, but it's like to get through it, and when you get on the other side and you see other people that like help you get through the side, in turn you feel like you just have to like pay it forward and like return the favor for other people.
Yeah, and like one of the things I did with my grief when I was going through that back in high school, my business class, we had to make a business plan, and I chose to make a youth home. So because, you know, a lot of the youth that I met, they relocated for school and they'd be living with family, and then, you know, there'd be a lot of people living in one house, and a lot of my friends also went through the child welfare system. So I made a youth home to deal with my grief and try to create a space that youth can go to and have a second chance. And that's what I created, and put my grief into creating something positive.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the beauty of it, I feel, with like whenever you go through some pain, is that like you can turn the positive into a negative, because it's like, you know, I feel like even like, you know, not to double back, but like to like myself and my own situation with me, like when I first got like paralyzed, my thought was like, what the fuck am I gonna do now? Like, you know, like all types of things, like, you know, who would want me, like what am I gonna do with myself, like, and then with that pain in turn, I just met some people that made me realize that, you know, if you talk about things, like, you know, it may help other people get through it. And then in turn I was like, this is my calling now. So it's like I use the pain to push me forward to do this. That's why we're on the Wheel1 podcast right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, like that's why I love to hear stories about how people like really just find the positives out of every negative that there is, because, you know, at the end of the day, there is some, like, you know, there's something to build on.
I really like encourage others to open up, and like when they're not okay, to share that and release that, even if it's just by themselves, you know. We're really truly, like, I believe, you know, we're really truly never alone.
Exactly.
You got the creator, you got your ancestors and all that.
Always with you.
Yeah. So, you know, you need to release stuff. You can't bottle it up. I forget where I was going with that.
It's okay. It happens. It happens to the best of us. But so now as we were like winding down, what are you currently doing for yourself? And just tell us a little about it. 'Cause, we kind of touched into a little bit into it earlier, but go full out of that.
Well, at the start of the pandemic, I was living in Toronto still. I was, heavily drinking. I just finished my diploma and I was really depressed and I just wasn't happy with myself. So I started listening to my inner self, like my spirit, and like I got tired of saying like one day I'm going to do this, one day I'm going to do this. And I moved back home and I started working on myself and everything that I've been running away from, because I've been drinking for the last 17 years. Like that's pretty young. Yeah. Grade 6, so right up till I was 29. And I started dealing with, the traumas I went through and going to ceremony again and talking about stuff. Like I got back into counseling.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing thing.
I love my counselor. Like I'm having that weekly, being able to vent to someone that's not
related to
you because they can have bias.
I think we all know those ones. There's always someone's always got a favorite sometimes. So it's like I feel like that's like the great thing, like you said, with a counselor or something, where it's like someone, or it's just I'm just letting it off right now, and they're just giving me the feedback on what they hear, and I feel like that's always healthy to do, especially.
Yeah. So once I started working on me, like I had extra time too because of COVID. Yeah. Nothing was really happening. I started working on my business plan that I made in high school and opened up my own nonprofit organization called Indaya Aja. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We have our own website.
Check them out. Check them out.
Yeah, I started that. We've been at it for a year now. We opened up our office space and
big moves.
Yeah, I'm just even like my own personal. Me as a person, I try to motivate and share my story with others. So every week, I try and post videos online and give a little, message to people.
I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like, and like you said, things really came full circle.
Yeah.
And you look back on it, because it's like, something that you started, years ago for coping. Now you're doing for a passion, and it just turns out, you're going to be helping other people.
Yeah, it's like my life work now. And even though in the last year or two, I lost a lot of people to overdose,
Sorry to hear that.
I'm trying to take everything good that they were and like put that out into the world and incorporate it into my work. Mm-hmm. It's important so that their memory lives on. I
mean, that's the big thing. Like, the motivation comes from the people that aren't here, because they can't live up to certain things, and we just want to make them proud at the end of the day too. It's like to do things that that they would love to see that you're doing, and then at that you're doing it for them. So it's even better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So as we about to wrap down though, what does the future hold for you? Nonprofit, everything. Tell the people. Let the people got to know.
So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, I want to have be breaking ground or opening up our home, our youth home, the Indigenous youth home.
I love it. We love it.
Yeah, and then I hope to be more motivational speaker and going around doing talks with the Indigenous youth, sharing my story and the stories of my loved ones that passed on, and try to inspire some change.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing right there. That's a beautiful thing, and something that we need, because it's rough out there. You would know for the kids that grow up in your type of situation, your environment, but I love that we're ending it on a positive note. Hopefully by next time we come back around and we talk, exactly, it'll be you talk about how you breaking ground and you got the home open and everything's jumping. You know what I'm saying? But that's about it that we having for today's episode. Shout out to my good friend Natasha for pulling up on me. And it's the Wheel1 podcast. And that's it for today.